All right. Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to A Fearapeutic Lens, where my wife Renee will use her expertise to share some insights she has about the psychology of films or video games of the horror genre, though we may branch out in the future. So go ahead and tell them about yourself, Renee.
Good evening. I am Ryne Escher. I am a board certified and licensed therapist. I'm actually currently licensed in 4 states, pending 2 other states. So licensed across several different states. I'm also a board approved supervisor for the main state that we live in. I have been working in mental health for about 15 years. I've been doing individual therapy for the last 5. Have a really big array of experiences from inpatient psychiatric, outpatient psychiatric, hospice care, all sorts of different stuff. But on the nerdy side, personal side of things, I am a lover of everything horror and psychology, and I get very, very excited and passionate about it. And so Nox decided we should start a channel. So here we are now.
And I am her husband, Nox. We have been married for 16 years, and we have a beautiful baby boy together. My role in all this is that I will bounce questions off of Renee from the layman's perspective. I also put all of this together, so if this all looks a little free trial to you, that is because I've never done this before, and we are learning as we go. Everything you see is subject to change and hopefully improvement. Tonight, we are returning to our discussion on the Amazing Digital Circus. Almost 2 weeks ago, we did the first 4 episodes, went over what we loved and the insights that Renee had on them, and now we're going to continue. We're going to start with the 5th episode, go through to the 7th. And if all things go according to plans, we will return tomorrow night to do the 8th episode and the finale. But just a brief reminder, this show started in 2023, just recently finished. In fact, the final episode is available to watch on YouTube now. So if you're a fan of the show and you haven't watched it, it's like, what are you doing here? Go watch it. But special note, this is not a review. We are operating under the assumption that you are familiar with the show and are looking for extra insights into it. If you haven't seen it, you might still get some entertainment out of us, but we do recommend that you watch it if you can, because we both enjoy it. Also, an important notice. The psychoanalysis done in this video is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as therapeutic or diagnostic advice. If you feel you are experiencing mental health related symptoms, please seek personalized care from a licensed professional.
Also of note, if you are in a sort of crisis and you do not have a mental health professional already, 988 is a wonderful service here in the US, but check out crisis hotlines in your area if needed.
All right, let's get started. So we are on episode 5, Untitled. That's really the title of the episode. It begins kind of as a business as usual situation, kind of implying that some time has passed since the 4th episode. Everyone is returning from an adventure, getting congratulated and somewhat derided by Kane. Everyone's wiped out, and Pomni collapses immediately. Everyone kind of wanders off as Ragatha is trying to encourage Pomni, saying the adventures of the next one will probably be better, and but Pomni's kind of zonked out on the floor. Kinger pops up and asks Ragatha for help counting his eggs before they're hatched. Ragatha immediately agrees to do so, and as she walks off to help him, is like, wait, what?
Which I love that, because I know we've commented on the first few episodes, and I think it's fairly obvious. You guys don't need me to point out that she is a people pleaser, toxic positivity, always trying to talk about how much better things will be, and just look on the bright side, and never actually acknowledges the problems. So that's why I love that line about, hey, Ragatha, can you help me count my chickens before they're hatched? Because, right, counting your eggs, or yeah, counting your chickens before they hatched is supposed to be, oh, you're being way too optimistic and not actually looking at the reality of the situation. So again, Kinger is my favorite character because of all the random off the wall stuff that he says that is actually like grounded in truth or sarcasm or smart aleckiness. And this is one of those lines where I think he's genuinely asking her because his brain is trying to be a smartass and he's not quite sure how to say it right.
Ragatha exits stage left, and then Jack saunters on by, commenting to Pomni that Ragatha's positive attitude is probably, rubbing her raw and is not appreciated anymore. Kind of planting the seed that he doesn't like Ragatha, and he's expecting Pomni to grow tired of Ragatha soon enough. Pomni is barely receptive of this comment as she pushes herself upwards and looks in the distance and spots this NPC watching her.
I also think that it's interesting, oh yeah, are you sick of this yet? Is this going on? Da 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 da. I really think it again goes back toward Jack's actually wanting other people to be miserable. If he can have Pomni's one cheerleader abandon her, then yeah, he would actually feel like he's winning again.
But then we smash cut over to Zubul, who is in an exchange with Kane where he's looking for feedback, and Zubul is making snide comments. So, of course, Kane reacts in a calm fashion by freaking out at her, and then a split second later, returning to default stance, going, hey, your feedback is appreciated. So, he actually gathers everyone up to get feedback and ask about the previous adventure. We get the comment that Zubul and Pomni both appreciated the adventure where they're just working at a fast food restaurant. And, Kane is surprised by this, so he turns to everyone else to see what they thought. And yeah, we get various different excuses ranging from, no, maybe that didn't turn out quite the way I intended. And then you get Jack's threatening violence.
And I laugh because Ragatha's like, well, really? I'm like, girl got thrown in a deep fryer and covered in stupid sauce. Like, I'm sure she is so not ready to go back to that one. And then, of course, poor Gangle actually thought, oh, this will feel so normal. And I think it maybe was a little too normal for her. But yeah, I think it's interesting going back to Kane freaking out on them. It's like the things are starting to fray a little bit for him. You're starting to see those cracks.
My personal opinion is I think the suggestion box has clearly been up there for a while, and I imagine when Gangle suggested it, she was probably missing her former life, and then when she's thrust back into a situation that mirrors it, she realized why she actually probably didn't enjoy her life beforehand.
But I do think it's interesting that, kind of like what you said, your feedback is appreciated. Da da da. I don't know how many people here. I was not always a therapist. I did not always have my degrees. I did work retail. I actually worked every service, I think, except for food service. But when you'd have the customers who would say really stupid things or ask really stupid questions, and it's like, oh, I just want to punch you in your face. But thank you for that excellent suggestion, ma'am. I will definitely tell my boss about that. Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. And in your head, you're just like, ah! I almost feel like that's kind of how Kane got himself under control. I really kind of connected with that.
So, with half of the group remarking that they did like the adventure and the other half saying they didn't, Kane is growing confused. It's like, how am I expected to, satisfy you people when you're all over the place? What am I supposed to do? Zubul first proposes the option of just leaving the adventure worlds open so that they can go and do whatever they want, whenever they want. And Kane turns to the side and whispers rather loudly to Bubble, it's like, they want me to let the AI characters run indefinitely. To which Zubul remarks is like, are we not supposed to be able to hear you? And yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess it's a theory that I have in a later episode, so I won't go into it too much, but I think I don't know, the way that Bubbles is there, I almost feel like it's like the angel devil on the shoulder conscience thing. So I always laughed at are we not supposed to hear you? I'm like, yeah, probably actually Kane forgets that there's an internal monologue that he is supposed to have. But yeah, when he's like, let the AI run rampant, I'm like, I wonder how many worlds and how many like I guess models or what's the word that they use? Oh, there's a specific word. I went to school for computers too. Yeah, objects, whatever. How many different things the different worlds have? Like if you let things run wild, would it almost overwhelm the world?
So to completely sidestep Zubal's comment, Kane proposes a lightning round. They are going to go through the suggestion box at rapid speed with special rules. Pretty much at any point, someone could call a vote, and they could vote to skip their current adventure. And they're going to start immediately to the complaint of Pomni and the others that they just got back from an adventure and now they're being thrust back into uh, rapid fire nonsense.
And again, I think it's, oh my gosh, they don't want to be part of this anymore. I have to fix this immediately. And the whole, I have to do anything I can to make sure that these people don't abandon me that Kane goes through. Although, on a side note, I do think that it's interesting with lightning rounds. There's something that they call word association. I'm sure people have heard about it, but sometimes, like, I'm going to say a word and you just say the first thing that pops into your mind. I know some people who still use that in therapy. I really haven't, but it's like, okay, you're going to make a decision on the split second, which means you won't have time to lie. It's whatever comes to your brain first, and boom, that's what we do. So I kind of think that's why Kane's like, yeah, I'll just call it out and then say which one you want. Well, if you're doing it super quick, they can't actually think about it. So they might agree to something they actually don't want to.
All right, so the adventures begin, and we start with Poacher's Paradise, to which everyone immediately recognizes this is a Jack's idea because he is one of those, high plains huntsmen. Got his big old gun. He's got the what are those hats called? The special safari hats.
Safari
And
hat.
yeah, and he's ready to go on a hunt, and his first target is Gangle as a rhino. He immediately takes it out with a shot. We get this, very cartoony, nice shot, congratulations screen, as then he charges over and starts biting into the ribbons of Gangle. And Zubul immediately raises their hand, is like, nope, we're going to pass this, we're going to put it to vote, and we're going to make Jax a vegan. And vote passes. So Jax is now vegan, and we're moving on to the next story. Jax is rather perplexed that was an option.
And I think that that's one of the biggest hints for them. I think we've known it the whole time as the audience, how much autonomy that they don't have. They don't have, I mean, hey, guess what? Now I control your diet. Now I control what your favorite foods are. And it's like, whoa, okay, cool. I have zero control over my life now. Um, which I think is really, really messed up. But also, I will say a lot of these suggestions that kind of came out during the lightning round remind me of like really bad children's cartoon shows from like the 90s and early 2000s. Um, yeah, or video games. So I just thought it was really funny. I was like, yeah, I feel like I've seen some of these suggestions before.
Well, who knows where Jax is taking the inspiration for his suggestions from? Because the next one that pops up is President Pomni. And Jax immediately claims credit for this one as well, and Zubul points out that everyone could tell. And Pomni is now president, and everyone else is working around her. And it is pointed out that everyone received a character briefing except for Pomni, because Jax just wanted to see how she'd handle herself under pressure. And, we quickly find out that the answer is not well, as she is called on to defuse a bomb because, for whatever reason, this president does not have a bomb squad on hand to deal with the Jax is an Australian terrorist, and this bomb will go off and it'll release dangerous spiders and centipedes in order to, kill everyone. And yeah, it's a bizarre situation. And I've also left out the bit where Kinger's giving her a pep talk under the desk, and there's just this bizarre baby headlamp down there that Pomni just cannot pay attention to what's going on because it creeps her out.
Well, and again, we talk a lot about Jax wanting power and control over other people, and I find it interesting that the Safari one, he shoots Gangle, because a lot of the things he does toward Gangle tend to be actual physical violence. But with Pomni, he's trying to play head games, like, again, talking about, oh, was Ragatha driving you nuts yet? No, how's this going? And so this is another mind screw level against Pomni. So, oh, hey, yeah, you don't get a briefing. I'm going to mess with your head. So I think it's interesting how the different suggestions almost seem to torture people the way he would want to torture them normally, if that makes sense.
And speaking of Gangle, before Pomni can successfully defuse this bomb, Gangle walks in, and I'm going to guess the instructions on her briefing were to improvise because she claims to be a New Zealand terrorist, and unfortunately she has no idea what a New Zealand terrorist would be angry about. And after a few moments, her bomb explodes.
Again, violence toward Gangle. Poor girl. Feels so bad for her.
Fortunately, next, Gangle gets her moment because the next suggestion to pop up, because obviously that one's over since everyone's dead, we go on to the anime one. Everyone is in high school with Kinger as their teacher. We have Gangle back there happily drawing, and everyone else kind of just, taking it in. Except for Jax, who is complaining because he demands violence and action in his adventures, and he knows exactly where this came from. Looking to Gangle and blaming her for this and for having bad taste. And Zubul, of course, comes to her defense. And Jax, getting rebuffed, turns to Pomni for reassurance and how lame this is. And of course, Pomni just cannot connect with him because she's recalling the recent and previous violence that he has enacted upon her. So it comes to Jax is like, you know what? I'm going to make us skip this one by once again threatening Gangle with a dirty secret, because apparently he has all of Gangle's dirt, and Gangle doesn't want that stuff getting out, especially to Zubul.
Well, I think that's kind of the metaphor / actual literal keys that he holds. He has the keys to everything, so he knows everything. He knows all the secrets. He is able to say all these things. But I also found it interesting too, right? The last one, Kinger was like her advisor, right? And then in this one, he's a professor. And then we have another one where he keeps getting put in authority roles over everybody else instead of actually like being on the same level as everybody else. And I always found that really interesting in these little side quests that they have in this episode.
And the next adventure is actually an extremely calming one where they are on this kind of, wooded clearing under the stars, just stargazing. They got a picnic set up where they're sharing sandwiches, and everyone's just relaxing. You've got, Kinger's off by himself. You got Zubul and Gangle who are sharing a picnic, and Jax goes to comment, looking over at Gangle and them, kind of ponders if Gangle is actually feeling better, because you have the whole mask gimmick where her mask is breaking almost daily, and yet she gravitates towards Zubul, and Zubul is always reaffirming her and supporting her. So Jax kind of wonders aloud, is she actually better now? And this prompts Pomni to, look at Jax with Ragatha looking over her, and she addresses Jax and asks if he has any actual friends. To which Ragatha kind of turns to the side and comments, "Not anymore."
And I think it's interesting that a lot of times when you hear Jax complaining about other people, not picking on them, like when he's trying to be the person in power, you don't hear it as much. But when you actually get to see real Jax, I mean, do you think she's actually getting better? It's almost like this jealousy that they've surpassed him in some way. I'm not talking like severely things, but it's like the, oh my God, she's gotten better. Well, why haven't I gotten better? Um, and then I also think that not anymore reference from Ragatha is very out of character and shows that there's a lot more going on that we haven't seen. But also I think that's sad to think about. Oh my God, Jax did used to have friends. What did he do? Me as a therapist, I kind of already was like, oh, I know what he did. I know. He's got that nice avoidant personality going on.
Oh, Jax, if looks could kill, the glare he gives to Ragatha, and she immediately stammers, apologizing, and since Jax is clearly enraged, she just kind of runs over to talk to Kinger. And yeah. This leads to Pomni asking what that was about, and of course Jax is attempting to deflect, and he brings up Ragatha's attitude. It's like, she doesn't she bother you the way she acts, the way she's all, cheerful and supportive, and it makes Jax feel that she's disingenuous and she's taking advantage of others. And he feels like he's getting a bit too serious for a bit, so then he puts on a big old smile and says, also, she looks weird. Pomni kind of points out that they all look weird, and Jax is like, of course, I'm the peak of masculinity from the top of my ears to my tail. To which Pomni points out, Jax doesn't have a tail. He's a little distressed to notice he doesn't have a tail and seems to not quite place where he just doesn't connect. It's like, I had a tail, didn't I? When did that? What happened? And he kind of walks off in frustration.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how, again, he's trying to get to Pomni, and I think he's trying to drive this wedge, but Pomni is always just like, no, let me ask you more questions. What was that about? What does that mean? What is happening here? And I also think deflection, right? That's the term that we use in therapy when it's like, oh, super serious. But hey, let me tell this joke to show you just how okay I am. And when that happens, my brain usually goes to, oh, that's deflecting. You are definitely not okay. So again, Jax's humor, I think a lot of that is, I know a lot of that is deflecting. He's just trying to get people to not see who he is really because he's scared for that to happen.
All right. And then the camera pans up and we see Kane in the sky, and he's getting comments from both Bubble and the Moon about how, hey, everyone seems to like this one. And, Kane is, he seems kind of on board with, oh, hey, this is a cool adventure. And then he realizes that this is not an adventure he made, and he can't have this, so they need to change. And that is when we go into intermission while he prepares something. And the intermission sequence, it's available, isolated on YouTube for everyone to watch, and it is essentially mostly the animators and I'm assuming Gooseworth's music flexing, because we get a lot of interesting stuff, and it's kind of one of those things where I'm watching this, is like, what does this look like from the point of view of the characters? Are they seeing all the crazy shapes? Are they seeing Kane bathed in heavenly light, surrounded by all the eyeballs? And then then towards the end of intermission, we get Jax running around, and he kind of skids past this door. I believe this was shown once before, but very briefly, and now we get it highlighted again, but this gets interrupted by Zubul calling out Jax. He's like, what the hell are we doing here? Jax is like, oh yeah, this is the intermission. And Zubul's like, well, why? Kane doesn't have an answer, so Bubble calls off the intermission and takes us back to the show.
And I think that this is the part too where isn't Kane talking to Bubbles and asking questions, and Bubbles is responding in just like weird like da, 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 kind of speech, right?
Well, what happens is that Kane points out that them enjoying this adventure is bad, and we get this weird kind of broken up sentence where Bubble says, "Please explain how bad."
Okay. And so to me, that's again where I think Bubble almost represents the conscience. Conscience. Because it's like he's telling himself, he's almost like, oh my God, I'm trying to, oh, this is bad. But no, it's not bad. Please explain why is bad. I do not understand why you think is bad, sort of thing is going in there. But I also think that in the intermission, it's interesting how Kane tries to take his power back by having physical authority and hurting them. And again, it's the same cartoonish harm that he causes, but I just think it's interesting that anytime he feels a little bit less than, he has to lash out into something awful.
And then our humans are fortunate that the next adventure to pop up is also not one recommended by Jax, and we quickly find out that this is one cooked up by Zooble. We appear in a bar, kind of lacking in color for a very noir aesthetic. Zooble recommended this, put it in the suggestion box because they used to work at a bar, and this comes as no surprise to Jax. But this seems to be a call for everyone to start sharing their background. So we start with Pomni, and Jax makes a jab at her appearance, suggesting she's a child, to which Pomni clarifies, no, she's 25 years old. She is an accountant. She works for a supermarket chain. And it's kind of pointed out that, well, that's kind of boring. Also, how did you get here? It's like, oh, well, she likes to do urban exploration. And she records it and puts it on YouTube. To which Jax derogatorily refers to her as a YouTuber because he's a jerk.
I also think that's interesting that as we kind of go through some of this, I briefly did this, and for a little bit I did this, and it's like a lot of people don't seem to have a steady job. But yeah, I think it's interesting that both Zooble and Pomni explore abandoned buildings, because that makes you think, okay, they got here the same way then. That must be what happened.
Yep, because Zooble does, comments like, oh, they used to do that sort of thing too. They just didn't record it. And one thing I kind of, watching this again, and I kind of really appreciated because I don't know, I didn't register the first two times. Zooble probably actually is a very good bartender because they are connecting with everyone here, even Jax, because they have a comment of support for everyone. And it's handled pretty well. It's like, this is definitely the Zooble scene. I love it.
Well, and I think too that it's one of those things that when you're in a certain location where it's almost like you're expected to be relaxed, they start to relax, they start to talk, they start to open up, which I don't know, I feel like there's been so much downtime in between episodes. They would have done a lot of that already and they haven't. So I think it's interesting how they decide to do it now because of Zooble's suggestion, and partly I think it's because it is a bar.
Well, that kind of calls back to one of the criticisms I see often levied at this show, is that people kind of, like, they question the actions of the people. It's like, why haven't they done this, that, or the other? It's like, well, because it takes time to adjust when you find out you're trapped in an immortal playground thing and you've been turned into something else, and then you're going on these ventures where terrible things can happen to you, or just, especially with someone like Jax along, who could turn anything mundane into something dangerous. And so after such adventures, people probably just wander off and de-stress in whatever way they do. And then there's the lack of sensation, because it's, kind of driven home at other points that food, doesn't taste the way it should, and they're not getting sustenance out of it. It's like they can sleep, but they don't get much out of it. And oh yeah, then there's the fact they're probably having nightmares due to their situation. So they're not always in the headspace to just chit chat.
Well, there have been some instances where they'll ask a basic question of each other, and the other person responds, I I really don't know. So I think again, there's little spots that are blocked, I guess we might say. But they can't access everything that they need to memory wise or think about what to do next.
But with Pomni covered and Jax providing little jabs, Zubul passes the buck to Jax to explain his backstory, to which he immediately starts lying and pretty much makes a full-on reference to Breaking Bad, and Zubul tells him to shut up if he's not going to tell the truth, because they know what he's referencing. And as a point of note, Ragatha does not. So then Zubul passes it over to Gangle, who we can see is doodling on the thing. And of course we have Gangle pointing out, of course, everyone knows she worked in fast food. So Zubul's like, well, tell us about your art then. And Gangle, admits she went to community college and it didn't work out. And yeah, it's she dropped out and didn't really get any motivation, and then she wound up here.
But again, I think it shows that trust between her and Zubul, because Zubul knows exactly what she likes to do and the other people don't.
Yep, and at that, in order to cheer Gangle up, Zubul offers to collaborate with her on an art project of some kind. And Ragatha is kind of surprised to hear that Zubul is an artist, to which Zubul points out, yeah, they were tattoo artists for a couple of years. And this is another thing that is no surprise to Jax.
Which makes you wonder why Jax is just like, oh, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's like, okay, well, is he just saying that because he, again, wants to have power? Or does he actually have that good of insight into people, but he's not always sharing it? But I really do like the scene because it shows a lot of the backgrounds of the characters in a deeper way. Now, yeah, I think it's a little bit obvious, right, with the sad mask that Gangle has some depressive issues. I do think that they possibly do have bipolar, to be perfectly honest. But just getting to see and hear more about these characters and about how, oh yeah, she's sad a lot, but also has all this art, and it's something that she really enjoys and something she wants to follow. And I really do like this scene a lot.
So then Jax points out that next, there's no point in doing Kinger next because he's crazy, so there's no way they'd get any good information. And, Jax turns to Kinger and is like, so you're crazy, right? And Kinger's like, and never better. And so everyone kind of is like, yeah, okay, fine. And then Ragatha interrupts too. It's like, okay, I guess I'll go next. And she tells a story of how, she raised somewhat wealthy, she had horses and such, and an overbearing mother. And so when she tried to get away from that, she worked in real estate, and she kind of quickly realizes that she has that moment where she realizes she was probably significantly more privileged than those around her, but she still had her issues and felt like sharing, and kind of hits that odd spot. It's like, crap, do I have the right to complain? And she starts drinking.
And I think it's really interesting, right? The idea of the overbearing mother. I really feel like Ragatha was abused by her mother a bit, like maybe not physically, but verbally, emotionally. So her people pleasing at this point to me makes a lot of sense, because I see that a lot in individuals who have trauma or have some sort of abuse, like I said, verbal, emotional, physical, in their childhood, because they're kind of trained that, hey, if the person who is hurting you is happy, they may not hurt you as bad, or they might not be as mean to you. So if you can constantly be happy and constantly do whatever they want to do and constantly show them what a good person you are, heavy quotes, um, that it'll keep you safe. But the problem is that a lot of people don't lose this as they get older often. They keep that idea of, oh, I have to make everyone around me happy, otherwise I'm in danger. And I really feel like that's what Ragatha has gone through.
Her goal here is to get people to like her, so probably the implications that she was better off is not endearing people to her.
Well, and I think that there's like this idea that, oh my gosh, you say you're rich, you must think you're better than me. She's never once said that. But again, she's self-conscious enough to know, oh, this might make somebody angry. If I make them angry, they may hurt me. And so she has to apologize and switch subjects.
So, with all of their backstories out on the table, Jax takes this as an opportunity to apologize to Pomni for, the whole thing with President Pomni and just hanging her out to dry. Pomni is a little put off by the notion of him apologizing, but she chooses to accept. So then Jax takes her in a bit of a hug and proclaims that they now have a budding friendship. And he calls on Ragatha to see her response, which is this.
Well, and you and I were having this conversation earlier that we will talk about in other episodes, and it's like it's interesting to watch this a second time when we know the backstory, when we know what happened, and a lot of it comes out in the very last episode, the one that just came out on YouTube. So yeah, she is like, you cannot hurt other people, and I don't trust you at all, and I will murder you.
But since she can't come out and say that, instead she tries to take the exact same approach that Jax just did and appeal to Pomni by kind of calling back to their first adventure with the abstraction of Kaufmo. And she's like, oh, God, that was kind of crazy and exciting, wasn't it? To which Pomni points out, like, no, that was terrifying. And Ragatha's like, oh, right, yeah, that was probably, I'm sorry, that was, blah, blah, blah. So Jax interrupts and, kind of points out she's messing up and she should probably not try to act so cheerful and should probably just let loose with some of her negative ideas, like when she suggested Gangle should kill herself, to which Ragatha gets defensive and points out that was the fault of the stupid sauce. She would never say that. And they have, arguing and back and forth. And this is when Zubul takes notice that the corn cob she has provided for the bizarre drink that Kinger requested seems to trigger a very violent, averse response from Jax. And it's amusing how Zubul is teasing him with it and kind of questioning it, but then Kane pops up and says he's bored and they need to move on to another adventure.
I forgot, I'm muted. Haha. I think Kane is also stepping in, not just because he's bored, but they are starting to bond. They are starting to take away some of the drama. I say that as Jax is stirring up the drama, but I think that's what he's like, yeah, let's go ahead, step in before we go back to being calm, cool, collected. So I think he does that a lot because then they can't gang up on him. They have to trust him. And I also wanted to say, going back to with Ragatha and wow, wasn't that crazy with Kaufmo? That was exciting. And Pomni saying no. It makes me think of the word trauma bonding. And I have so many clients that talk about trauma bonding with somebody like, oh, they went through a trauma and I went through a trauma and we bond over the trauma. That's not what trauma bonding is. Trauma bonding is when you actually tend to be a little bit closer to your abuser because of the trauma that's going on. And it's a weird kind of psychological thing that happens. However, it is kind of normal to try to connect to other people by saying, "You went through this? Well, I went through this." And I think that's what Ragatha was trying to do. It did just backfire, though.
But we do move on to another adventure, and it is quickly pointed out that Ragatha suggested this one, as they are presented with a baseball stadium, and they are called on to play as the Big Tops. And Ragatha's looking excited. Everyone's kind of chill with this one so far, and then we look across the field to see the evil Big Tops, which is their opposing team. And we are introduced to evil Pomni, evil Ragatha, what is it? Coach Dictatoror, who's supposed to be the evil Kinger. And then we get the evil Jax, who is this kind of meek, pathetic guy. Then we get evil Orbs Man. And then we get Bazooble. And they are quite the colorful cast. And then Gangle questions why she doesn't get an evil doppelganger. But then the game begins.
And what I think is really funny about that, why don't I get a doppelganger sort of a thing? One, right, they try to always make her feel sad. But two, and I would say stick with me on this, I don't think it's that complicated, right? Everybody is the opposite of their counterpart. So Zooble is really, okay, I'm not here, I'm spacey. Ragatha is really mean. Pomni is trying to incite things. But I think with Gangle, it almost took it literally, where Gangle is made of ribbons, very long and thin and small, and then you have giant orbs on this person. Again, mostly just to rub it in her face about how different he is from her to make her feel bad.
And for anyone who isn't aware, if you do want to see Gangle's evil doppelganger, it's not canon, but you should check out the stream where they played a game of D&D as their characters on Gangle's VA's channel. You had Kinger running the game and everyone playing characters under him, and we do get to see the evil Gangle, and it is pretty funny, and it is a very enjoyable stream so long as you're on board with the fact that they're not playing right.
Tell me how you really feel, Nox.
It happens.
Nope, not me watching movies where they screw things up, and I talked to a client about this, reading a best-selling novel that has a psychiatric background that everybody I've ever met loves, and I hated every second of it, because that guy obviously does not know psychology.
But hey, D&D does have the golden rule. It says, everyone have fun, just follow the dice if you want, follow the roleplay if you want. Anyway, moving on. Kinger's the coach, and he's trying to motivate the team, and he's kind of successful in his crazy way, but things don't go well. Ragatha is first up to bat, and she's immediately out because she hits a fly ball, and evil Pomni easily catches it and is insulting her the entire time. And the group notices that Jax is kind of vibing with the evil team members, especially evil Pomni. So, hey, out of nowhere, a vote is called. And of note, Pomni votes against. And also, since their icon is missing, and then we quickly find out from who he blames, this vote was pitched by Gangle. Jax is kind of confused as to what is going on until, a maid outfit appears on him, and he immediately knows who it comes from, and he chases Gangle around, and it's kind of amusing. And then Zooble actually makes the comment, with the way he is fuming, this is the most upset that they have ever seen Jax be, and they are very curious as to why that is.
But of course, Jax is not going to tell them why he's upset. But yeah, I did think it was really interesting that Pomni didn't vote to have him put in it because she's trying to actually just be kind to people. She's not trying to intentionally be mean. I think she voted for him to be a vegan because he was hurting Gangle and was like, nope, he's hurting people. We got to put this little muzzle on him. Um, but yeah, I hate to say the glee that Gangle has after he gets put in the maid outfit is pretty dang funny. But yeah, he doesn't ever lose his cool, right? So Zubal's pointing it out. Ooh, this must really make you mad, huh?
But then we have Pomni goes to talk to Ragatha. Ragatha seems pretty down, not just about the fact that she just, immediately got struck out, but also the fact that she's, still feels bad about the bad things she said, like the comments to Gangle when she was under the soup and sauce and other such things. And Pomni does make the comment that she doesn't like the idea of agreeing with Jax, but maybe it would be good for Ragatha if she occasionally let her other feelings out on the surface at some point. But Jax then sits down and takes the opportunity to prod Ragatha a little bit more about what's been going on, and Ragatha decides she has had it, and she's going to speak her mind about how Jax abuses Gangle and how he's, manipulating Pomni, and Pomni kind of seems, Ragatha has clearly had this bottled up and she's letting it all out, and that's probably not best, and this is kind of more than she expected, and Ragatha kind of turns on her for, this isn't this what you wanted? Now I'm voicing my stuff, and then she, deep breaths and manages to calm down and then apologizes. And in the background, the game is continuing. I know we haven't cut back to it, but then we have I think it's actually at this point that Gangle was up to bat, and then after Ragatha finishes with her outburst and walks off, Gangle goes up and is like, "Hey, I got a home run," and Ragatha's like, "Oh, wow," and the advice that Ragatha gave to Gangle was very useful, and this kind of something I feel that Ragatha needed to hear at the moment. And as the game is continuing, Pomni steps forth to offer Ragatha her turn at bat.
And I think that Pomni is saying, I hate to agree with Jax, but I really think you should feel your feelings. I'm like, okay, Pomni is very insightful. I think Pomni actually watches a lot of things from the outside and then will make comments to see if it can help that person kind of get to what she thinks is best. It's not that she's trying to force them to, but just like, well, what do you think about this? Or what is it? I'm like, oh, okay. Very much like a therapist, Pomni. Good for you. But I do tell my clients all the time. I have so many clients. Gosh, I cannot tell you the number of people that are like, I'm not allowed to feel this. And I'm like, why? Because it's bad. I'm like, feelings are not bad. Feelings are feelings. We have emotions for reasons. I remember very vividly when I worked in a psychiatric hospital, I worked with adolescent girls mostly. And they would sometimes tell me, like, well, I'm feeling sad and I want to cry. I'm like, okay, cry. Go ahead. I understand you feeling sad. You're in the psychiatric facility. It's not a fun place to be. But they're like, no, because if I cry, you're gonna think I'm depressed. And I'm kind of looking at them and I'm like, okay, there are a lot of things that happened that let me know that you're depressed because a lot of them were a danger to themselves. And I'm like, no, you crying doesn't mean you're depressed. You crying means that you're sad. Sadness is not depression. Anger is not rage. Being scared of something is not paranoia. It's just we have feelings. But yeah, clients will let it bottle up and bottle up and bottle up, and then it explodes, usually when something is disproportionate to their reaction. And what I mean by that is like if somebody didn't do the dishes like they were supposed to, that's not a huge deal. But if this person has had so many things throughout the week that has been making them mad, when the dishes aren't done, they are going to explode, and people are going to be, wow, you're crazy. Wow, what are you? And so I think it's very important when we have an emotion, feel it, use some sort of coping skill to take control once you have felt it, and then take the next steps. But if you hold it in, it really is going to explode. Um, and then lastly, that part where Gangel's talking about all the compliments and Pomni offers the Tibet. It goes back to that episode. I think it was episode 3, where Kinger says the line, like, people just want to know that you care about them and you recognize them. So I felt like that was kind of a throwback to that episode.
Yeah, the comment, like, the worst thing for someone is to feel like they're unwanted or unloved. And realizing that her advice worked for Gangle and that, Pomni's willing to give up her spot at bat for her, Ragatha's feeling valued and needed. So, unfortunately, when Ragatha goes up to bat, Kane is pretty much done with the game, and he declares it over, and the Big Tops win. So everyone comes up and congratulates Ragatha. The evil team complains as they never got a chance to bat, and then they all melt. And but before that happens, apparently the effects that were put on Jax wear off. The maid dress disappears, and he's no longer a vegan, so he immediately runs off and starts eating evil Jax.
Sounds so violent when you say it. It's almost like a dog with a toy, like kind of a thing, versus actual eating. So just, yeah, if you haven't seen the episode, it's not that graphic as it sounds.
Yeah, it's about as cartoony as what we saw when Jax dumped Ragatha in the fryer. But with the game over, we go back to the circus. Everyone starts going their own way, and Ragatha kind of feels put off that Pomni goes off with Jax to apparently continue a conversation that they had earlier.
And I think that it's probably really difficult for Ragatha to give Pomni that kind of space because she has opinions on Jax and she worries about what will happen to Pomni. But it is one of those things, and again, I talk to parents about this a lot, where, oh, my kid is doing this. Okay, well, have you allowed them to just be free? Well, no, because they have to do what I want them to do. And it's like, okay, no, your kid needs to be able to live their life and make their own choices. You'll be surprised how often they come back to what is the quote unquote right choice. But if you never give them that opportunity, they don't grow. And I think this is Ragatha trying to take the step back and not be overbearing like her mother was and let Pomni come to the realizations that she needs to on her own.
But with that, the episode comes to a close, lingering on the shot of this guy again. We're actually going to close up on him before the episode actually closes, but then we go. And we continue on to the next episode. Any closing comments on episode 5, Untitled?
I think it's really funny because I think it's called Untitled because they can't decide what the heck they want to do in the episode. So it's like, oh, well, we don't really have a subject. We just kind of bounce around on ideas. But I think it gives us a lot of insight into who these people are outside of what we've learned so far.
All right, so we continue on to the next episode with Fanfare announcing the favorite character awards. They will be taking place, but there's a little bit to take care of before then. Kane points out that look forward to it, but yeah, there's stuff to get to before then. But the proper episode begins where we have Zubul is hiding in this flower pot suspended up here, drops one of their arms, and as Pomni and Jax pass by, asks that they throw it up to them. Zubul is hiding from Kane because they heard from NPCs that there will be another, in-house adventure, and Zubul wants no part of that, so they will be hiding. To which Jax immediately calls Kane to ask, is like, wait, what adventure are we doing? And then he points out Zubul, and yeah.
I just think it's funny how, like, what lengths Zubul will go to avoid doing these things, like hiding up in that little pot, and like, who even thinks about that? Like, I don't think anybody tries to avoid Kane like Zubul tries to avoid Kane.
Well, of note here is that pointing out how odd it is that they are hiding in a flower pot, Zubul points out that they can no longer hide in their room because Kane comes around looking for them, and when they don't answer the door, Kane just hangs out there singing Daisy. And this is actually what sparks Jax to ask for Kane, because Pomni, it seems a little confused that, questions like, would Kane really do that? And Jax is like, let's find out, and he calls Kane.
And again, I think that, finding out that, Kane can also just snap his fingers and you'll be drawn right to his side. It's like, oh, so this is all a illusion that we have autonomy and a sense of self here. Great. That's really good for us and our hold on reality.
Sorry, the song is called Daisy Bell, but, it's the famous song, been around for a long time, probably most popularly used in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it's all over the place, really.
I'm trying to remember the origins of the song. Like, I think it's like the early 1900s or something like that. Anyway, but I'm curious why that song is bothering her. Like, what specifically about that? But I don't know if we ever find out.
Well, I think the reason Kane sings it as the 2001 Space Odyssey reference, but why that bothers Zubul, no idea.
Well, there's a lot of things that I get why Kane does it for them, but I'm like, I don't know why it bothers other than I think Zubul's like, can you just leave me alone and let me just live my life, please, and thank you.
Anyway, it's adventure time. So with Zubul and the others there, he announces that they need to meet him at the stage in a couple of minutes. And once everyone's gathered, he announces that he is inspired by the previous baseball adventure, that there needs to be some kind of organized sport, some kind of competition. So while he's explaining this, and he's also speaking about the favorite character awards, which Bubble is carrying around a camera in order to collect footage for the committee to consider, Kane goes into the explanation of his extremely elaborate sport. It's weird logic stuff and just wordplay, and Zubul's having none of it. Despite the fact that the ideas are terrible, Zubul's main point of contention is that they will probably have to team up with Jax, and this prompts Kane to ask the immortal question of Zubul: why is all you do is complaining?
I love some of these lines and the grammar with it. That's it. Why all you do is complaining. Not gonna lie that I almost want to put that in my back pocket for a therapy session.
And it is once again, I forget how the topic comes up, but Pomni kind of lets slip that she doesn't really approve of a sports competition, which sparks Ragatha to ask, like, wait, you didn't like my baseball suggestion? And Pomni is like, no, not really. And Ragatha seems a little hurt, but then it's suggested, why don't they just go back to the suggestion box, to which Kane just, he gives a valid response about how it kind of, tends to spark drama among the members, and then he just flatly admits that he no likey the suggestion box.
Well, right, that idea of like, oh wait, this isn't my suggestion, so it's wrong. Nope, I'm not going to take anybody else's suggestion because I'm going to show you how great I am. Again, how much control he wants over them and that sense of who he is kind of crazy. But also, you can have friends who like things that you don't like. There are other ways to connect with people. You do not have to like every single thing together.
So with Kane's frustration and his stuff being rejected, he, just like, what do you guys really want? And this sparks Zubul to step forward and say, you know what I really want? I want us to be able to have sex. And Jax responds appropriately.
Jax's response is so good because I think we as an audience were like, oh my god. But what does he say? He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you had it in here," or something like that.
His remark is like, "Are we finally having this conversation?"
But again, I think that there's the ideas that Kane has to give them constant stimuli. That's the word. But it's like, no, they're human beings. Like there are other things that they want that are natural human things. But Kane doesn't understand that stuff.
But as a point of note is that no, we are not finally having this conversation because Kane promptly glitches out and kind of violently jerks around with static around him, and then resets to normal and continues as if that had never been suggested. And I have a hole in my notes because I forget how he gets to the assuming gag. Because I think it's something to the effect of them assuming that he cares about their input anymore. Because then he puts this up, and people kind of go to correct how he got it wrong, and then he introduces Ming, who is offended that they made an ass out of themselves and him. How dare they? And Zubul remarks is like, you made a guy just for this gag? And yes, he totally did.
Well, and I think about Kane and his little meltdown that he has, almost, I don't want to say dissociative. I think that's what I wrote when I was doing my little notes for this, but it's him saying, no, I'm going to reject everything that you say because I know I'm right. I'm going to completely ignore everything you say, and just kind of blocks the criticism because he can't take it. And I think kind of like with Zubul, like, you made a guy just for this gag. It's showing how desperate Kane is to have people like him and to tell him that he's doing a good job.
So quickly moving along, Kane is like, all right, I have a better idea. We're going to do trust exercises. And no, it's not going to be the falling into arms. It's going to be a two-way thing where one of you, you have to trust each other to do something. And it's going to involve this loaded gun. Pomni is immediately concerned. But Kane goes into explaining his trust exercise, which involves a closed room where the first person takes the gun into the room and is supposed to empty all of the bullets. Then they take the gun back out and hand it to the second person. And the second person is supposed to point the gun at themselves and fire, trusting that the first person removed all the bullets. And if they do, yay, trust. However, the first person, in the event that they leave bullets in the gun, have to trust that the second person they hand the gun to does not turn the gun on them and fire. And this will totally, lead to trusting each other. So, of course, the first person he tries to test this out on is to Jax, so he hands him the gun. And Jax was not paying attention, has no idea what he's supposed to be doing, so Kane reaches out, grabs his head, and just uploads the entire speech he just gave into Jax's psyche, and Jax is like, oh, okay. Then he immediately turns and shoots Ragatha.
I love the look on Kane's face too there. I think it's normal for everyone to be like, oh my God, did you just. And Kane is just like, oh my God, you just shot her. That's crazy. And of course, Bubble back there with a giant camera that she's just like, ah. But no, we know that he wasn't going to pay attention. I don't know why we give that man a gun.
And at that, Kane is just like, yep, sure, whatever. You could just shoot each other. And it's like, yep, so here's a bunch of guns, knock yourselves out. And then we get Zubal's response is like, wait, that's it? You're just going to give us a bunch of guns and say have fun? To which Kane retorts, I didn't say have fun.
And I think this is where we start to see Kane is losing it, because so far the idea has been, why aren't they having fun? Yeah, no, just shoot each other. I don't care. I legitimately don't care. So I think this is kind of the first sign of like, he's starting to be done with these people.
But then Kane announces the rules that they have 5 minutes to divide into teams, and then it'll be a free-for-all. They run around and shoot each other with guns, and the last team standing wins. So the group, timer starts. They got 5 minutes, and the groups start dividing up into teams. Pomni immediately goes to Ragatha. First, Jax grabs Gangle. Gangle pulls away and says she's going to go with Zubal. Jax looks a little annoyed at this. Then we cut to Pomni, who approaches Ragatha, and Ragatha, noticing Jax on his own, is like, no, actually, I'm going to go with Kinger so that Kinger doesn't... Well, no, what Ragatha says is that she doesn't want Kinger to have to team up with Jax. So Pomni says, oh, well, I've been with Kinger before. I could team up with him. Ragatha visibly does not like that idea, and she would prefer to be with Kinger herself. Pomni, picking up on this, is like, oh, it's okay. I can keep Jax in check. I'll go join Jax. And Ragatha immediately feels guilty and apologizes and says, she'll be there for Pomni if she needs her. So, if she ever needs anything. But Pomni points out, it's okay. She's got this.
And I think that actually shows a lot of growth for Ragatha too, because she's able to admit that she doesn't want to do something, and she's not scared that Pomni will never speak to her again. I think there's some anxiety there, but she's able to finally set boundaries because she trusts Pomni. So I think this is a big scene for that.
And then we get the setup for probably one of the best scenes, or at least my favorite scenes in the show, where Gangle entrusts her comedy mask to Zubal for safekeeping, because she feels like if she held on to it, it would inevitably break. But she wants the comedy mask to be around for if she finds a Tommy gun, she wants to be able to fire it while laughing maniacally, and she needs the mask for that. To which Zubal declares that she will protect it with her life.
And I find it interesting talking about, literal masking, that she needs to have these things in order to feel strong enough to face everybody, right? Like, I don't get to wear this comedy mask unless I can meet this criteria. It's like, if you don't get the Tommy gun, you got like a I don't know, Magnum, wouldn't that be still fun too? She would say no. So it's like, yeah, just a lot of trying to figure out what is it that she wants and what is reasonable, and she's able to tell people what that is for the first time in a while.
With the teams decided, the timer counts down, and when it hits 0, the guns all disappear. And they call out to Kane to ask what the deal is, and he points out and was like, oh yeah, the guns have been teleported to random spots in the circus. Go find them and have fun killing each other. And so everyone runs off to find their guns, and Kane is here. I'm sorry, I didn't move. He is here lounging in his chair, and he pulls out those photographs of the office to kill time while everyone else is running around.
And I find that so interesting that he keeps going back to that office. Like, why does he have the pictures? Why does he keep going back there? What is so interesting? And we figure that out later. But yeah, just something of note.
So the hunt is on, and Team Kinger and Ragatha. Also, we should probably point out is that Ragatha is already down a heart from when Jack shot her. She's very put off by this, but Kinger is, bound to help her out, and he's finding guns, and he's talking about how, he's strategizing. He's talking about how Zubul and Gangle, being the youngest, are probably the most dangerous and wily. And Kinger showing some discipline and experiences, practicing very good trigger discipline that we see in no one else throughout the show. So there's that. But also Ragatha barely paying attention because of her lost life. Kinger decides to deal with it by conjuring up a butterfly that, in true Zelda fashion, restores her health. Ragatha is rather shocked by this, and she asks, did I miss the part where Kane said we could do that? And Kinger's like, no, I made it up. And this just confuses Ragatha further.
Well, wouldn't it confuse you too? Like, wait, why do you get special powers all of a sudden? And Kinger just, la la la, I don't know. But starts to show, I think, where Kinger is starting to have control of manifesting things in the world too.
Maybe digging deep into his well of wisdom has caused him to unearth other things that he can call upon even when he's not lucid.
Well, I think it's almost like it's becoming second nature for him. He doesn't even have to think about, oh, you need this? Here, take it. And nobody else is there yet. So I just find that interesting.
So then we cut to Pomni and Jax, who are exploring the hallway with everyone's rooms, looking for guns. And, Jax, turns to Pomni, asking her, so who are you going to kill first? And Pomni proposes the scenario where she will just help find the guns and Jax can do all the killing. Jax is not impressed, and he's, trying to convince her, get on his wavelength. She needs to just look at it like it's a game to win, and she just has to have fun. But Pomni, she's reticent to, do any harm to her friends. And Jax, he starts sharing his worldview. This is just a game. We're just a bunch of cartoon characters, and there's no point in pretending otherwise.
Except for I've seen enough shows where it's like, no, there's more to it than that. It's not that simple. It's never that simple. But I do think how much it's like, oh, hey, come to the dark side. We have cookies that Jax keeps doing and trying to almost corrupt Pomni, and how that keeps happening.
And so Pomni, having difficulty coming around to his thing, kind of, she's digging deeper, and she needs, further explanation, which Jax is happy to supply. He explains that they are cartoon characters and they have archetypes. Jax, he is the funny one. Ragatha is the cheerful one. Gangle's the sad one. Kinger is the crazy one. Zubul is the grumpy one. And Pomni is the one who hasn't figured it out yet. So, Jax motivates her by just letting loose and figure out how things work for her. And oddly enough, when handed the gun and just told to relax and just do whatever works, it actually does seem... Oh, crap, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is him explaining the deal. Then he gives her the gun, and she points it in a kind of, very rigid, not very comfortable around guns sort of way. So he tells her to relax and have fun, and just go with the flow. And she, flips it around and does this kind of, cocky, not taking this seriously, and she just blows away the can at the end. And she's surprised to see that this works. So she commits Today, she is going to be evil Pomni. And, everyone will rue the day they encounter her. She's going to kill them all. She laughs maniacally, and, Jax is enjoying this up until the laugh, which he points out is kind of cringe.
This kind of goes into the whole thing that I talk to people about like internet culture. This isn't real. There's, it's a game. We're just going to do this game. Nobody's actually going to die. So I'm going to be as crazy and awful and horrible as I want to be. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a release. And I relate that to the internet, where you have so many people who do trolling stuff. It's like, yeah, because this isn't a real person really in my brain. I know somebody's there, but this won't bother them that much. And it's like, nope. I'm sure other people got really offended by whatever it was.
So then we pick up with Ragatha and Kinger are, making their way around. Ragatha has kind of a dinky little gun, and she's kind of concerned about how well she's going to perform. And then her concerns grow when Kinger gets sniped right in front of her. And we cut to Zubul and Gangle, who are perched above. It's this is where the firefight ensues. You get the fires exchanged between Zubul, Gangle, Kinger, and Ragatha, and this is overheard by Pomni and Jax, who then charge ahead to join the fray. Ragatha, who's unsure if she's going to be able to be that effective in combat, immediately gets her hands blown off by the approaching Jax and Pomni. And poor girl.
I mean, again, I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to make sure everybody's having a good time. I'm trying to make sure everything's okay. And then boom, hands gone. You sure you're okay? Again, toxic positivity does not take into account real life actions.
So, in the firefight, Gangle and Zubul flee the field, leaving Jax and Pomni to fight Ragatha and Kinger. So, Jax and Pomni split up. Jax is going to take Ragatha. Pomni's going to go after Kinger. And so Jax corners Ragatha, and she is unarmed. She manages to pick up, after getting shot once, because Jax does a sick cartwheel over her and shoots her square in the top of her head, and she dies, and that leaves her with, I think at that point she only has one heart back left again, because I think she gets gunned down when Jax and Pomni first run up. So she tries to run, and she finds a gun, and she goes to point it at Jax, and unfortunately it turns out to be one of those trick guns where it shoots out a little flag that says bang. And so Jax closes the distance, points his gun at her, and Ragatha recoils and just kind of instinctively reaches out her hand to plug the barrel of the gun, which works and causes it to backfire and shoot Jax. She remarks that she's, she did not expect that to work, and Jax responds by pulling out another gun and just mag dumping in her.
Well, again, I think it's interesting because I think that Jax does that so quickly out of anger because he's lost control again, right? We talk about that a lot. But I'm almost curious if the cartoon physics would have been there if he hadn't talked about the cartoonish archetypes. Like if it was almost like his little nod at the world. So he might have more control than he thinks, but he's not acknowledging it.
Well, I honestly feel like it's a mystery that Ragatha never gets a chance to find out, and Jax has no interest.
But yeah, I just think it's funny, the cartoon physics that are here. But also, again, he goes after Ragatha. Jax has a vendetta against Ragatha, and we find out later what it is, but you can just kind of see his disdain for her constantly.
So after Ragatha vanishes, her being slain in the game, Pomni comes up behind Jax, claiming that she's lost Kinger, and then she notices that Jax appears to be down a heart, and she asks how that happened, and Jax remarks that he doesn't know. And then poor Ragatha pops up in the loser corner.
I think it's so sad. The loser corner, how dare you? But to be honest, to me, it looks super, super peaceful. Like, oh, underwater and just nice and cool and calm. I think that wouldn't be such a bad place to be.
It's got a nice calming aquarium with the jellyfish and fishies in it. But then we cut back. Zubul and Gangle are scavenging more guns, and Zubul presents Gangle with an AK-47, claiming that they were unable to find a Tommy gun, so when the moment comes, would the AK-47 work? And Gangle kind of just, defeatedly is like, yeah, I guess. So they have a moment. Gangle is concerned that Jax will be upset with her because she didn't join his team. And oddly enough, Zubul seems to mirror Jax's outlook by pointing out that this is just a game and she doesn't need to worry about it. And Zubul obviously, identifying Jax as an asshole, is trying to tell Gangle, it's like, you don't need to worry about him. He's beneath you. It's not worth your concern, especially when he's not here. And they're having a connection, and Gangle says something to the fact that she feels like she hasn't improved, that she still breaks her mask all the time. This sparks Zubul to bring out the mask that they'd been entrusted with, and they remark that strange that only the two of them have these weird avatar gimmicks, and they wonder why no one else has them.
And I wonder a little bit if the reason that they are able to kind of interchange a lot more than the other ones is because they don't have a very stable sense of self. I kind of think that's why Gangle has the ribbon portion, is she's very fluid in how she feels and her emotions. One minute she might feel great, one minute she might not. And it's very thinly connected. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, the ribbon and we go tying through it. And then Zubul talks about all the different things they've been wanting to do and what they want to do out in the world, and that they tried this, tried that. So I think that's why they have all the interchangeable parts, is literally trying different things, like that part of their personality.
But these two have been granted a temporary peace, so they are having a moment, and you see the bond between them growing stronger as they value each other, and they're willing to see each other through. And then we cut to Pomni and Jax, who are just walking along, and Pomni, feeling a little closer to Jax than before, sees the opportunity to ask him about stuff, and she starts with asking him about corn, because the other adventure, he seemed to have reaction to it. And he tries to deflect, but she points out, like, no, you literally jumped out of your seat like twice, so there's something there. And he describes it as like the little kernels of corn. They remind him of eggs, and it creeps him out. So Pomni deduces that he might have some kind of trypophobia, and he doesn't know what that is. And so she just kind of starts listing off things to see if they bother him. And first is pomegranate, and he doesn't like it. And she appears like she's thinking of more things to ask him when they happen across a doorway that Kinger is hanging out in. And the firefight ensues, because you have them just walk by Kinger and freeze, and Kinger, just staring blankly ahead, is like, I'm right behind you, aren't I? and they open fire, and Kinger dodges, and then they charge into a darkened room. And I just love how we get some cool stuff like this, like Kinger fanning the hammer on a revolver. But through the firefight, Kinger does this really weird ricochet thing, which looked cool until the light turns on, and we realized he probably hit himself multiple times with that and took himself out. So Jax and Pomni celebrate their victory.
Oh, that is such a good screen grab. Just she's like mad and drunk with power, and Jax is like, yeah, coming to the dark side. This is awesome.
But yeah, you have Jax and Pomni growing closer together, and there'll be more on that later. But then we have Kinger pops up in the loser zone and sees Ragatha's a little distraught, and quickly comes to the conclusion that she doesn't feel bad about losing. She feels bad about something else. So he's carefully questioning her to see what's got her down, and she reveals that she feels like she has failed Pomni, and she's losing her, and she's going to lose her just like she did with Jax. But she feels like if she keeps trying with Pomni, she's just going to push her away more, and Pomni will hate her.
Which I think is important to think about that. I failed Pomni and Jax, and if I keep pushing, I think she probably did keep pushing with Jax, and he completely shut down and moved away from being her friend, and she doesn't want that to happen again. But also, if you just sit there and wait for things to happen, it's not going to.
Then, more careful questioning, because, Kinger has slipped into a lucid state. He is drawing on those wells of wisdom that he has, and he's guiding her towards answers, and she's admitting that she's starting to feel alone because, she knows Jax hates her. Zubul and Gingle have no interest in hanging out with her, and she feels like she's pushing Pomni away, and Pomni is repeatedly going to Jax.
And I think that some people can relate to this, where it's like your best friend starts to have a new friend and they're spending a lot of time with each other and feeling so left behind. But that just because they're with somebody else doesn't mean that they don't still care about you. But I think Ragatha really struggles with that.
So Kinger feeling like he's, he doesn't have answers, but he does have advice. He tells her that he probably just needs to give Pomni space to figure things out, but she needs to make sure that Pomni knows she'll be there when she needs her. And through her tears, Ragatha is admitting that she's starting to hate herself for what she's done and how things have played out. And this prompts Kinger to admit that there was a time when he hated himself before she arrived. He hated himself for the way things had turned out. But when Ragatha showed up, something changed, and he felt like he had to step up and be responsible, and he had to help her and whoever came after. And as Ragatha is now realizing, how much his words are helping her feel better, she points out that he seems, oddly insightful, and this isn't the first time he's done this. The moment gets ruined when Bubble appears with a camera and says, the favorite character awards committee is going to love this shit.
Well, because I think that the show has a lot of really good connected moments with the different characters, and the insight, and the hey, don't live in the past or the future, live in the present. But just pointing out, as we have figured out in a lot of these episodes, when Kinger is in the dark, and I think it's because he's less overstimulated and he can focus on himself, he is a lot more insightful than he normally would be.
But then we cut back to the action. Jax and Pomni are pursuing Zubul and Gangle. As Zubul is holding off the other two at the end of a very long passage, Gangle happens upon the Tommy gun. And she, roars around the corner, firing wildly, laughing maniacally, biggest smile on her face ever. Unfortunately, she's firing widely. She doesn't seem to hit Jax or Pomni, but she does a lot of damage to the tunnel passage they are going down, which is one of those hamster tunnel things that you see snaking around the main area in the circus. So this causes the tunnel to collapse and everyone to fall out. And unfortunately, when they land at the bottom, it's Pomni and Gangle right next to each other. They both reach for their guns and turn to shoot at each other. And unfortunately, Pomni's quicker on the draw and takes out Gangle.
With a really excellent shot, I might add. But I think that's so sad because I think Gangle just wants to feel in charge and control of her life for 1 second, which is why she wanted that Tommy gun. So to have her go out in that way, hopefully it was so quick that she wasn't disappointed, even though we know that she goes to the loser corner and we'll see all that. But yeah, she's able to have that freedom and that power when she's got that Tommy gun and laughing maniacally.
So now we have left Jackson Pomni versus Zubul. Zubul retreats to their room, locks the door, and is digging through, looking under stuff for any hidden weapons, and gathering up extra arms. Waiting outside the door, Jackson Pomni starts singing Daisy Bell. And it's them, dancing back and forth, and, Zubul cannot take it, has to yell out their frustrations. But when Jax and Pomni finish the song, Jax is like, oh wait, I have the key. And they open Zubul's door, and there Zubul throws out a flashbang to disorient them, and emerges with extra arms and a lot of guns, and immediately takes out a life point on both Pomni and Jax. But then Zubul runs off, doing suppressing fire with all 4 of their guns. But Pomni gives chase. And she trusts in the heart of the gun. She has a single shot left, which she loads into the cylinder, spins the cylinder, twirls the gun around in very extravagant fashion, and then fires straight up. And this magically causes it to ricochet all over the place, hitting Zubul multiple times and knocking every gun out of their hand, and then eventually knocking them down, giving Jax and Pomni the chance to catch up and gun them down.
And it's kind of a literal interpretation of the idea of manifesting, right? Where there's this idea that if you not wish for, but if you put something out in the universe, like, man, I'm going to be so successful. I am going to be the best. that if you keep talking positively or that sort of stuff, then it'll come true. It'll happen. Well, the circus, obviously, like with the butterfly that we had with Kinger, is a literal manifestation. So I think Pomni just needs to be like, you know what? I want to shoot everything out of her hand. Go. And if she looks at it and believes in it enough, it's going to work. I will also say, one, Jax and Pomni have a wonderful duet together, and Pomni must have some choir experience because she knew that harmony really dang quick. And 2, that scene to me is the epitome of F around and find out. Right, like they push her and push her and push her, and they're like, ha ha ha, see, we got the upper hand, see, we're driving her crazy, ha ha. And then she comes out and slaughters both of them. It's like, yeah, you should have seen that coming. And I see that a lot with clients too, where they have a partner or somebody that will gaslight them and push a button and push a button, and then when they explode, it's like, oh my gosh, why are you being so mean to me? Yeah, because you push the buttons, now you got to find out.
But Zubul does not go down quietly. They reach out with their extra arms and give excessive amounts of middle fingers, and then are gunned down. And then appear in the loser corner with everyone else. And what?
Why are they cats? I don't understand why they're cats. What is happening?
And the world may never know, because then we go right back to Pomni and Jax. And Pomni celebrates their victory by giving Jax a big old hug, and Jax immediately pushes her away. So, yeah, the kind of brush off the awkwardness, Pomni, gets back into character and is like, well, I suppose this is the point where we betray each other, right? And wheels around to draw her gun, pointing it at Jax, who still hasn't recovered from the awkwardness and seems rather in his head about what just happened.
Because again, I think that he's realizing just how vulnerable he's being with her on a lot of these things, and that it's scary. And it's like, okay, I was vulnerable with her. We got to this point. Now what? And he's not sure how to proceed, so he's kind of frozen.
But he quickly gets back into character and is like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. You can betray me. Just go ahead and do it. And Pomni's not comfortable with this. She kind of expected this, game to continue. We'd fight and, best man wins or whatever. And so, he gets closer, gets right up in her face, pull the trigger, going to do it. If you're going to do it, just do it. To which Pomni kind of, cautiously is like, so if I shoot you, we're still going to be friends after, right? To which Jax rather flatly just points out, we were never friends.
And I used to see this a lot in hospice, and it was really sad. And I would have to explain it to caregivers, where it's almost this reverse psychology. Like, you know what? It's scary to care. I don't want to get hurt, or I don't want you to get hurt. So if I can make you hate me, or if I can make you think that I'm a bad person, it'll be easier on you, which will make me feel better about having to do this jerk thing. Now, in hospice, the jerk thing was way out of their control. It was them dying. But I would sometimes have people who would get really mean the further that we went along, not just because of like dementia or, brain metastases or anything like that. But I think they legitimately were like, well, I'm going to die and they're going to be sad. But if I could be a raging jerk before I go, they won't be as sad. And I'm just like, what are you doing? No, it's affecting the current memories. I think that's what Jax is doing here. Hey, I don't want to be vulnerable. I can't trust anybody. So I'm going to say these things so that, hey, Pomni, this will be easier on you. You can do this because I can't trust you. I don't deserve to be trusted. So just go ahead and do these things that I expect for you to do. Sorry, that sounded really roundabout weird. I hope that made sense.
Well, we're not done, because Pomni is getting angry because she knows she certainly feels like there was a connection there, that they have grown closer. They are forming a friendship here. The teamwork they displayed, and the fun they had, and the information and question and kind of opening of eyes that took place earlier, kind of it has to mean something. But Jax is rather quickly shutting her down and just dismissing everything. And when Pomni points out that this dismissive attitude of his that just seems to infuriate everyone probably contributed to everyone abstracting, this strikes a nerve with Jax, and he goes off on her. First, pointing out that she's new here. She has no idea what she's talking about. She didn't know them before they abstracted. And he points out that before they abstracted, they were a pain for him to be around. And then he takes a few deep breaths and kind of shakes that off and is like, sure, whatever. Are you going to shoot me or not?
again, he starts having these moments where he actually expresses his anger and I think his true feelings, and then he so hey, yeah, I'm this really, really aloof, funny guy. So it really didn't hurt me. And he's cracking. He has a lot of pressure on him. I think he wants to trust people. He wants them to know who he is, but that's a scary, dangerous thing for him, and he can't have that.
So Pomni is thinking. Pomni is searching. She has to say something. She has to get through to him somehow. So she asks him a rather pointed question. She looks at him and she asks, "What would you do if I abstracted tomorrow?" And almost without any hesitation, he just looks at her and says, "I'd move on, and I'd probably forget about you."
And I'm trying to do these reviews very in the moment and not like looking at future episodes to put into this. But I feel like his statement there is really what he wants to have happen and not what will really happen. Right? It's like I will move on and I will forget that you ever existed because it will cause me so much pain to remember you if you abstracted and to feel like I was at fault. I couldn't live with myself. But that's not what he says. And that's not what he thinks he means either. But I think that him saying that is legitimately, this is what I think should happen. So that's what I'm going to tell you because I think it'll also hurt you. And I hope that that's how this will happen.
But Pomni's not having it. She's going to get through to him, so she attacks him. Starts beating him, bites his legs, punching him, demanding that he fight back. And as she's doing so, she's pretty much just poking holes in his thing. She rejects, the archetypes. She points out he's not the funny guy. It's got to be, there's more to it than that. It's not that simple. But Jax throws her off, and he's got to point it out. It's like he does not care. He's not that complicated. He just they're his playthings. This is just a game. All he's here is to all he's doing is making them suffer. That's where it's his fun. He feels joy at making them suffer. And if at any point he was leading them on, it was just to make the part where he turns on them hurt more. So then he turns away and says there's nothing more to him than that, so she should just stop looking.
Which, again, I actually think Pomni, I think it's funny when they're like, oh, I'm an accountant. I'm like, first off, I went to school for accounting and I know a lot of accountants. Yeah, I'm like, the things that she does, I'm like, you have got to have a psychology degree, girl. Cause like what would you do if I abstracted tomorrow? It's like, let me throw something out there to see how you react, to see what happens here. But he, again, loses control and says these really hurtful things because everything is down and he just, no, I want you to feel this because I don't want to feel like I'm weak. And it's just cruel and all of that to them. But also, I just Pomni, fight back, do this. I'm like, girlfriend, what you just let him get into your head. And like I would have, again, the inpatient unit with the girls, I'd have girls, they'd start arguing, and one girl would just deck another girl, and we'd have to put them in a hold and get them separated and all that stuff. And later on, they'd be like, but she made me hit her. And I'd be like, no, she made you mad. You chose to hit her. And I kind of feel that way with Pomni, where it's like, no, fight back. I'm going to show you. It's like, okay, Pomni, yeah, he's making you mad because he's not admitting the truth, but you chose to jump him and hit him. Like, what are you thinking?
But that's it for that scene. Jax and Pomni are done, and then we cut to the favorite character awards. Outside the showroom, Pomni and Ragatha go up to each other and kind of had the awkward trying to talk to each other at the same time thing, and then they, kind of deep breath and is like, yeah, let's just talk after the show. Everything's kind of awkward. And it's kind of funny because you can't see it here yet, but later when they cut back to Zubul, we see that they have gotten their hands on some of the stupid sauce, and they are getting high. But the important thing to note here is that Jax chooses to sit apart from the rest of the group. That's probably his seat right there next to Kinger, and he opted to sit in the back. But as the awards go, and Kane is doing his opening speech, Jax, he's looking restless, so he has to run out. And he goes to the restroom, and he's not holding together too well. He's taking a moment to collect himself, breathing heavily, and staring in the mirror, and he's not doing so hot.
So this is called a panic attack. But right, he's starting to separate himself. He's starting to actually make himself more I'm sorry if you guys hear funny noises in the background. My dogs are sleeping and making weird noises. But he's separating himself from the group. He's starting to be alone, and that loneliness is actually really terrifying. Add on top of that the fact that Pomni is actually, I think, getting into his psyche. It's probably bringing up a lot of feelings that he doesn't want to face alone, but now he's having to. So he's starting to have these reactions.
So after a brief encounter with the disappearing guy, he returns to his seat, and Kane is about to announce the winner. And he opens it up, and to fanfare and light shining down upon him, he announces that the winner of the favorite character is me, Kane. He basks in the glow, and then, he realized he made a mistake. The winner is Ming. So Ming goes out on stage. And he doesn't appreciate that Kane has, made them both look foolish by announcing it. By assuming. Haha. Roll credits. And then after the credits, we get Kane looking at the actual vote totals. And he doesn't take it well.
Yeah. But also I kind of feel bad for Kane because there are 0 likes for him. Nobody voted for him. And I think it's interesting, though, because it's like, who's your favorite character? I would think, oh, well, if he's the guy who runs this whole place, then you shouldn't vote for him. But for him, it's, hey, no, they all hate me. I'm a horrible person. They don't like what I do. I am failing at my mission. That can't happen. Versus, oh, well, what can I do differently? It's like, no. No, they don't understand. And he's losing it.
So that's it for episode 6. They all get guns. Anything to say on the way out, or shall we move on?
I think that this episode, again, it's showing how when you're in the moment, you can let your guard down and just different things happen. But then when you're not there and you can overthink and you're not in the present, it creates a lot of negativity. Because like when they were shooting guns and doing, oh yeah, we're great, and then as soon as it was just the 2 of them, then Jax kind of loses it.
But the show goes on, and now we're on episode 7, which is the beach episode. So we open up, and Zubul was once again hiding from Kane. But no one has seen Kane, so Gangle comes to collect them. And as they do so, Ragatha notices a note hanging nearby and takes it up to read it. And as they are reading it, they hear the voice of Kane, sort of like we hear his voice in his head sort of thing, except for no, he's actually there reciting the note as they're looking at it.
Very what do the kids say these days? Pick me of him. It reminds me of like when people used to do, what do they call it, vague booking, where it's like, oh my gosh, somebody out there did this horrible thing, it's like, no, he wrote it so that they would think about him, so he could come in and be like, look, Kane here, who wrote this letter? Yay, Kane! Like, oh my gosh, he's so desperate.
So, given that the note actually did not give them any information to go on about the adventure, they ask him what he has planned, to which Kane actually points out that he doesn't have an adventure planned. And he strongly hints that they should ask him for suggestions on what they should do. Zubul pointedly doesn't, but Gangle does, and Zubul kind of scolds her. Is like, no, you should have asked, because that's what Kane wanted. But Kane quickly recommends that they go around, oh wait, first he has a gag. And he's going to ask the Chinese room. To which Zubul points out, like, he had a gag prepared. And yes, he does. So, how the Chinese room works is that he's going to take, sheet of paper, he's going to ask for insight, and he's going to slip it under the door. And then someone, assumedly knows Chinese and has Chinese wisdom on the other end, is going to pass out suggestions. So he passes the notes under the door and waits. And Zubul, questions what is the point of this bit? Can he just tell them? To which, Kane rather pointedly puts his hand in their face, finger up, is like, no, you're just making the joke take longer. And the punchline of the joke is that when he gets the reply, he laughs, and when everyone asks what it says, Kane just points out, I have no idea. I don't understand Chinese.
And this is when Zubul goes up and punches him, or at least that's what I wish they had done.
So what Kane really wanted out of this is that he just wants them to explore the grounds. Go to the lake. You've never been to the lake before. And they ask, well, what are they supposed to do at the lake? To which we have Bubble come out and really just, drives in the F. You should throw a freaking beach party.
And I think that's just like, well, what should we do? Well, what the heck do you think you do if you're going to eat, right? I think that's the whole freaking me. It's like, I just want to call you so freaking dumb. But yeah, that just makes me laugh every time.
All right, so they go to the lake, which has the beach, and Kane has set up a little tent on clawed legs, which is supposed to convert them into beach mode. Pomni goes in first and gets, dumped out with a little swimsuit on and gets insulted by the sun. And the sun points out that she hates Pomni, and she just decided that. Ragatha tells her not to take it personally because the sun's just like that.
Which I think is so funny because we see the sun like a sunny disposition or a sunny mood, so it's like, it's a good thing, but here the sun's just a jerk.
But then we carry on and see everyone's little beach activities, and they're going on, and people edging around, people splashing. Then we get Gangle has a watermelon set up to smash, but before she continues, Zubul takes it, quickly scrawls Jax's face on it before Gangle can continue, and this amuses her, and they smash the watermelon, and you see Jax off in the distance all by himself. And then we have Pomni and Ragatha playing the beach volleyball or whatever in the water. Ragatha gets hit by the ball, and it knocks off the button eye into the water, and Pomni immediately dives after it, and just descends and runs across these two guys who have a side quest for her, and she just it's these guys, and Pomni's just like, wait, you have a quest for me? Why would I want to do that? Why would I want treasure? And the guys are just trying to continue the quest, except for Redfish just kind of cuts to the punchline and ruins it.
That would so be me. I'd be like, oh yeah, did you do the thing? Da, da, da. But I think it's really funny that Pomni's just like, oh, okay. It's like before, it's like, wait, what do we have to do? What's the point of this? So it's like the group isn't even phased by side quests or missions anymore.
So Pomni deals with the fish, and then we catch a shot of Jax relaxing in the shade, and then he gets a bucket of water dumped on him by Zubul. He asked them, was like, why? What was that for? And Zubul just rattles off a whole list of terrible things that Jax has done over the years, like run Zubul over with a steamroller, throw Gangle into a volcano, mail them a pipe bomb, other random assorted stuff. So the point is that I don't think Zubul needs a reason anymore, but Jax kind of, to diffuse the situation, says, shouldn't Zubul be more concerned about their body dysmorphia? But at this point, Zubul reveals that they've actually gotten more comfortable with it. They can cope with it on the norms, and when they can't, they have others that they can take comfort in. And they lean on and imply that Jax should probably be doing the same. To which Jax remarks, well, it's a good thing he doesn't have any problems he needs help with, and he walks off.
Again, the isolation that he's creating, and just he thinks that it's safety to not be with everybody else, but it wears on you. I tell clients all the time, we're pack animals. That's how we survived from when we were in prehistoric times and up into the present. It's like you can't really live by yourself out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can, but it's really difficult when you have to make your own food and make your own electricity. And I know that's extreme that I'm saying compared to this, but that's what we want, is to be part of a group that loves us and includes us. So him isolating is really taking a toll, I think.
Well, as Jax wanders off, Pomni watches. She's temporarily distracted by a shrimp NPC that tries to get her attention. But Pomni watches Jax, and then she notices this NPC that is watching Jax. And then that NPC seems to call her over. But rather than follow Pomni, we continue to follow Jax, who is retreating to his room and lies down on his bed. And he looks over, he rolls his head and sees that he has a bunch of Polaroids stuck to the wall face down. He reaches out, grabs one, and turns it around, and we see this image of Jax with Kaufmo and the presently unnamed rabbit, or frog. Wow, I messed that up, didn't I? This frog friend that's been hinted at.
Her name is Ribbit.
I messed that up. His frog friend, who's been hinted at multiple times before but has not yet been named, is in this photo with him. Yeah. So he then turns his head.
Spoiler alert, it's Ribbit.
It's Ribbit, I'm sorry. I mean, you guys should have seen this already, but bleh. Anyway, he rolls over, looks at the wall, and first it appears to be a normal wall, and then we look again and we see this opening has formed. And after a moment and a droning sound begins to grow, we hear this creepy croaking and rattling sound as these hands appear and begin to reach out towards Jax. And then Jax reaches out towards them, and his glove fades away as they reach out and touch each other. And when they do, there's an explosion of color, and Jax has a vision. So before we get to the vision, hey, what's going on with Jax?
So I feel like he was having like a little moment of dissociation when he was going to the room and just and then trying to re-ground himself by looking at the pictures of friends. But there is something that's called depersonalization. So disassociation is like, okay, I'm in my body, but I'm not really here. Like I feel like I'm far away. I've had some clients describe it as like they're watching a screen and that's what is happening in the real world and that sort of thing. Depersonalization is like you're in the world, but you feel like nothing is like you're not actually there. You're not really a person. Um, it's just not real. And then derealization is basically the same thing as another step, but it's like nothing is real. None of this is real. And I think that that's the hands going out to him. It's a little bit of he's gone into the derealization mode where things are here. He's starting to have some psychosis. And then fun times happen, which I think is the real depersonalization of it.
So Jax finds himself floating through this kaleidoscopic rainbow of colors and shapes where this soothing music is playing. He sees shapes and colors all around him, like a passageway and stairway leading up, and faces around him of, Jax sees himself in some of them. Then he also sees Kaufmo in some of them, and he also sees the frog in some of them. And there's a point where he relaxes. He seems to be at peace as he's drifting along. Unfortunately, this seems to come just a moment before his doorbell rings and he wakes up.
Which is, again, grounding, some sort of sound, some sort of sight thing, some sort of taste, whatever it is, will jerk you back into reality sometimes. My favorite coping skill to jerk people back to reality is to put an ice cube in their hands. So I think that doorbell was probably a shock.
And I forgot to mute myself. I'm sorry. Anyway, so Jax calms down and answers the door, and he finds that there's Pomni and Ragatha with a blank mannequin NPC, and they need to talk to him because they may have found the way out of the circus. This NPC claims to be another human who has been in the circus the whole time, and he, was nobody special and just got overlooked by Kane. But he needs them to trust him, and he's going to show them the way out. And Jax is not enthused, but they need his help because they need access to the Chinese room, and Jax, being the master of unlocking, likely has the key. So they get the bucket of keys from him and manage to convince him to come along as they try to find their way into the Chinese room.
Which this is one of my very favorite scenes ever. It's when they get in the room. But they're all poo-pooing. Like, are we sure this guy's telling the truth? Are we absolutely positive? And I think it kind of shows almost like a brainwashing type thing. I think if you think of Stockholm Syndrome, where you start to think your captor is correct, I think for them, they're like, any form of hope has to be a trick, right? Like, none of this is actually real. This is something that Kane has made up for us. And that kind of shows when they're like, oh, okay, I guess we'll do this. Okay, nobody's super excited about getting in the room.
Well, at first, the only person who seems doubtful is Jax. Pomni and Ragatha seem on board right away, and Gangle and Zubul just kind of going along with it. Pomni gets her doubts later, and none of the others really comment on the matter. So, but Jax is pointing out that this is probably a trick, but he's going to go along with it. And after trying some keys, it's kind of pointed out that none of the keys are even the right size to fit in here. And Jax gets frustrated. It's like, well, did we even try to open the door? And he just opens it up, and there's an NPC inside who immediately runs out. And we get this look from Pomni as she's just like, really?
You commit to a bit that much, Kane. Really, this is so dumb. But when he gets up and runs out, it's like, woohoo! I laugh every time. It's so funny.
So they go inside the Chinese room, and this is where this new guy is going to explain everything. So he explains that he helped create the circus. He helped design the infrastructure and the coding and that sort of thing. And that he works for CNA. And that when he started asking questions, because he found out that people were being hooked up to this digital world, and when he started asking questions, he got hooked up himself. But it's like everyone was being put in stasis and hooked up to the machine, and that Kane and the circus serve as the purpose they serve is to keep everyone occupied, keep their brains active. And Jax points out the obvious problem. It's like, okay, so the people who worked at CA were being hooked up to this. Well, none of us worked at CA. How did we get hooked up to it? And to which the new guy points out, there's like, well, they were expanding, and maybe you stumbled across something, and so you were loose ends, and you're being dealt with. Jax is not convinced, but this guy just seems to make enough sense, and he's a bit of a bumblehead and claims to have worked with Kane, so Pomni seems to think that that's a good enough connection. But the idea that he proposes is that they need to get into Kane's. First, they need to get a key from Kane. They get into Kane's office, and they use administration keys to access the secret chamber, which will allow them to deactivate the entire circus, which should wake everyone up and get them out. And so Jack's not convinced at all. But then it's like, oh wait, should we call you something? What's your name? And he dramatically pronounces himself to be named Abel. And Gangle's like, so, right, you picked that name, right? And he's like, yeah, I thought it sounded cool. Like, oh, okay.
Well, and going back, I think you said the wrong name, but it was that he said that he had worked with Kinger to do different things. And so they keep saying, well, why don't we get Kinger to come talk with you? And he keeps saying, no, I can't face him yet. No, I can't do that yet. No, wait, I can't get that done yet. And I think it's really interesting because he keeps repeating certain phrases kind of throughout the episode. A lot of it is, we have to leave Kane. We have to leave Kane. We have to leave Kane. And also, we have to make the right choice. We have to make the right choice. We have to make the right choice. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there when he's planning all of this, is it's like the words he's using sound to be a very specific way that he's talking.
Yeah. He is making it a point to stress that Kane is not the bad guy. Kane is as much of a prisoner as they are. And he's also kind of dissuading any going to Kinger and asking for his advice or letting him know what's going on. But Jax is convinced by the others to play along. And so the plan moving forward, because we actually get we get the footage of them doing it, and then we cut back to the meeting of them planning it, sort of thing that you see in like heist movies or whatever. But Jax has to go to Kane, and he has to get Kane to let his guard down so that Jax can reach into Kane's mouth and pull out the key he needs. And it takes multiple attempts, but Kane is excited that Jax is showing interest in him, and immediately takes him off to have dinner and talk about hobbies and all that fun stuff. And the asking about his hobbies causes Kane to kind of get emotional and blue screen. He glitches out, and Jax takes that opportunity to dig for the key in his mouth, but Kane recovers rather quickly, and Jax has to make a rather quickly thought up excuse.
Have I ever told you it's my dream to be eaten by you? Um, and I think that it's one of those things that he's so used to making other people uncomfortable in order to get the upper hand. Like, him doing that is just so easy because he thinks it's going to do the same thing with Kane. But to be honest, Kane, I think, is just so happy that somebody seems to care for him. His people pleasing stuff starts to kick in. And it makes me actually feel really bad for Kane.
But then we switch to Pomni and Ragatha, who are being led by Abel to the administration zone. And on the way there, Pomni and Ragatha are talking about how they really want Kinger's opinion on what's going on. And they both kind of, share this, like, they had, hearts to hearts with Kinger, and, they came out the better for it. And Ragatha kind of admits that, Kinger's probably the person she trusts the most in the circus, and she asks if that's a weird thing to say. But Pomni agrees that, that's probably true. But Abel is continuing to attempt to cast doubts on Kinger by suggesting that he may be responsible for being trapped here, and that he might deserve the fate he has.
Which I think it's one of those things where it's like he might deserve the fate he has. It's like, ugh. But that doesn't seem right. And I think they're really kind of paying attention to their gut on this and fighting against what is an instinctual, like, hey, something is wrong here, versus, well, I guess that makes sense.
And then we return to Jax. Kane is actually just bearing it all. He's talking about CNA, and he's even showing out those photos he's been looking out for a while. But Jax just doesn't seem interested. He's waiting for his next chance to grab the key. And it comes along when, Kane is being emotional, and he's just so happy to hang out with a guy who's interested in him, and then he glitches again. Jax reaches in, grabs the key, pulls, and hides it before Kane recovers, and then it's like, you know what? Can we, end our meeting here, because I want to go back with the others, and we're going to plan something special for you. And Kane immediately, acquiesces to this. He's like, all right, yeah, sure, sends it right back. And as soon as Jax is gone, he's looking at the pictures again.
And I actually think it's really interesting how a character without a face is able to have these looks of longing. It is so well done. I really enjoy how the characters are animated, because it makes you have that more, the stronger connection with them.
But then we see what Zubul and Gangle are up, and they're waiting around and considering if they should bring Kinger in on the plan or not. But Zubul decides that they should at least warn him to, what might be going down. And when they do inform Kinger, and, they've got a plan, and there's this guy Abel who's going to help them out, Kinger doesn't seem to know any Abel, and Zubul just kind of ignores it. Only for Jax to show up, mission accomplished, and not only did he get the key, but he's probably got Kane off their backs because he's, convinced them that they're doing something special that he shouldn't look in on. And this actually kind of annoys Zubul, because the next part of the plan was going to involve them distracting Kane, and that means that they can't do it and they're also not entirely convinced that Jax is successful, so they don't. Cain is a wild card right now. They don't know if he's dealt with, and they're upset that they couldn't follow through. And Jax is just telling them. He poses the questions like, why are we like this? Why are we? You seem like you're in a rush. You got someone you're waiting for you on the outside. To which Zubul pointedly looks at him and just flatly asks, "Yeah, don't you?" And Jax, looks immediately deflated and kind of stammers out, "Oh, yeah, of course."
Which I'll go into that a little bit later, but Kinger not knowing who Abel is, because Kinger's always been crazy, I think that they don't think much of it. And of course, I think he's not in the dark when they tell him, even though he had just come from the dark. So he was like, I don't know, maybe I do know him. But once again, this is another example of where Jax just doesn't listen. And I almost wonder, like, is this an ADHD inattentive type thing, or is it just literally he doesn't care?
But then continuing on, Abel has led Pomni and Ragatha to the administrator zone, and he's ready to dish out the keys, so he asks how many they want. And Pomni wants keys for everyone. This, again, Abel questions, like, are you sure you want Kinger brought in on this? And this causes Pomni to ask, is like, well, so when we get to where this terminal is to get us out of here, it's going to be dark in there, right? And Abel, admits, like, yeah, the lights will probably be dim in there. Ragatha's watching this exchange, and it dawns on her, like, right, every time Kinger has seemed more lucid has been in the dark. There's probably a reason to that. So Pomni is sure that, need to bring Kinger along. He'll be a help in the end. And Abel, he agrees, okay, he'll give her the keys. And then they get back, and Pomni hands out the keys, and she hands one to Kinger. He's in his billow fort, and he examines it, and then he goes to say something to Pomni, but she has left. So then he steps out into the light as he calls out her name, and she turns around to ask what he wanted, but he loses his lucidity and immediately forgets what he was going to say.
Which I think it's interesting, and I don't think they're trying to symbolize this, but this is what it makes me think of, is like people who have early onset dementia, or like the early stages of dementia or Parkinson's, or have some form of stroke that causes like a vascular dementia. It is so frustrating for them, and to see them like be so close to actually saying something and then they lose it. And just how they kind of shut down after that and don't talk about it. And it's like, oh, okay. Crap, that probably was really important. I hate that we lost that. And I kept thinking that with Kinger. But once again, I also think that this shows Ragatha and Pomni trusting each other so much, which I think they've done that bond throughout the show.
So everyone gathers, and Abel shows them to the entrance to Kane's office. It is in a kind of like a hot air balloon nest high up above. And in order to reach it, Abel has to ball them up and throw them into a cube, which causes a collision error and ragdolling and rockets them upwards towards the nest. They throw Jax in first, and he falls through and goes through this kind of wacky, bendy tunnel with, lights and stars and all that, and he gets dropped out on the other side, and then we get to see the entrance to Kane's office of this magnificent multicolored door.
Well, because it has the red and the blue, and other than them being very, contrasting colors, we keep seeing when Kane is having a meltdown, one eye will be red and one eye will be blue. So I think this almost symbolizes the different parts of his brain.
So everyone gets sent through, And when we get to just Pomni and Kinger left, Pomni insists that Kinger go before her, and Abel, he goes along with it. And when it's just Pomni, Pomni asks how Abel is going to get in there, and Abel admits that he's not going to. He's going to trust in them to make the right choice. As Pomni agrees, so this is all right. So on the other side, when we get out, I'm going to buy you a beer. To which Abel creepily repeats, make the right choice. And Pomni seems about to protest when Abel grabs her, balls her up, and throws her into the cube, and she rockets into the nest. And she falls out on the other side through the wacky slide. Oop, I should have shown. Yeah. She falls through the other side onto through the wacky slide, and she lands, and she's looking up at Ragatha, and she's starting to have her doubts.
Well, wouldn't you, if somebody started talking like make the right choice? Well, isn't the right choice to get out of here? Why don't you just say like, okay, go ahead and let's get out of here? No, make the right choice. Make the right choice. So again, I think that, Pomni's insight rolls are on point because she knows really good insight on people and can read when something's wrong.
But then we proceed into Kane's office, where we see these shelves on the walls lined with these little orbs that seem to represent every adventure world. And as they're walking through, we of course notice that Pomni is drawn to the Candy Kingdom orb. Probably important to her, huh? Then we see Jax is drawn to this Snowy Mountain Cabin orb. And as he's gazing at it, we hear like what seems to be the distant sound of voices arguing before, they call out to him to come along as they continue on.
And we will get a little bit more into that when it comes up in episode 9, the last episode. But yeah, all of levels, worlds, whatever you want to call them, seem to have different significance for each of the players, people. We don't know yet what is happening.
Then the way forward is opened, and as they step onto what should be the final leg of their journey, they join hands. But Jax refuses, and he stands apart. And they make their way down this passageway towards, the terminal. Gangle remarks that she's worried that when they get out, will they not know each other anymore? Will they forget each other? Will they, will none of this have meant anything? Zubul assures her that, what they have here is real, what they have matters, and that Zubul wouldn't have it any other way. But Jax is off there in the back on his lonesome, and he seems to be starting to lose it. He is barely holding together. He is starting to breathe heavily. His eyes are starting to get a little squiggly.
Well, because everybody is talking about their hopes and dreams for going into the world again, and I think he's having a panic attack because he doesn't know if he wants to go back. Like, going back is terrifying. Here, he kind of knows who he is. Like, he has the control, he has all this stuff. What's going to happen when they go back? Like, we don't know much of his backstory yet, but I think that that's why he's having the panic attack.
So they reach the end, and they see the giant terminal. And all it is a simple giant monitor, and it activates, and we get this message that pops up. Red button closes the console and keeps all the players inside the circus. The blue button will end the game and disconnect all the players. Seems simple. However, Pomni's doubts are creeping into her, and she suggests waiting around for Kinger to make the decision. And this kind of sparks some discord because Ragatha points out that Kinger doesn't seem to be all there just yet. And Zubul is confused of what's there to even ask him. The choice should be obvious. But Pomni, she has her doubts. Something is off. they shouldn't, jump to conclusions. They shouldn't make a hasty choice. But Zubul is growing increasingly frustrated. It's like, what could possibly happen, or what could go wrong? We want out, don't we? And as the two of them argue, we see Jax. Jax is getting squiggly. He's breathing heavily, and it seems to be growing worse quickly. But then we get some strange flashes of what appears to be a neighborhood street corner. Jax continues to breathe heavily, and we get another flash, which appears to be a car going down a road at night. And when we cut back, Jax has lost it. He charges forward, and he shoves Zubul out of his way, shoves Pomni out of his way, and hammers his fist down on the red button. Ragatha, everyone is stunned, and Ragatha's, what did you just do? And Jax can't really come up with an answer.
Well, because I think in the panic attack, he didn't have an answer. It was just, I might die if I continue what I'm doing right now, so I need to stop it. And stopping it was, hey, guess what? You're not going to the real world now. So that stressor, completely gone.
But then they hear like a party horn fanfare as upbeat music starts to play, and the screen opens. And they stare on in disbelief as Kane appears and announces that they have chosen the good ending. He congratulates them for staying with him in the circus and making the right choice.
Which, of course, just, I think, strips all hope from the group. Like, we thought we could get out. We actually put our trust in this guy. And nope, it was Kane again. All Kane. Kane all the time. Like, how disappointing would that be? Jeez.
Yep. Kane congratulates himself on how he managed to outsmart them and, concoct such a convincing scenario. And he even summons up Abel to congratulate him on playing his role well. But when Abel, gets wise and asks for a raise, Kane just quickly and just deletes him. Casually just snuffs this guy out. We get the brief glitchy scream from Abel as he disappears. And the party is looking on in horror, and Jax actually has a moment where he collapses on the floor in laughter, just hysterically, just amazed, amused, upset, and all manner of emotions that he was right. And that when he recovers, he slams his hands down and he yells out that Kane is a liar. And Kane is kind of shocked that this is the reaction he's getting. And this is the point where Jax draws the conclusion. It's like, Kane is messing with their heads. He's been doing it all along. He did it with making Jax a vegan. He did it with the stupid sauce. And as Jax is pointing this out, it dawns on Pomni. It all starts with their names. They forget who they are. That is what Kane does. And Kane tries to point out, it's like, no, I only make minor changes. It's just to make things interesting. If I made any major changes, it would be, it wouldn't end well. And this causes Kinger, who is apparently grown lucid, to point out that, well, like the first abstraction, like what happened to Scratch. And immediately Kane goes, on the defensive. He's getting desperate and denying it. It's like, no, it's not. It's a game. I'm doing a favor. It's all in fun. Blah blah blah. And as he looks on and sees that no one is buying it, he disappears as he throws them a gift basket. And they all just kind of stare forward as it sinks in.
And I don't know if you've ever run into that with somebody who's maybe like a con artist or something like that, where they're trying to convince you of one thing. And then when you catch them in a lie, they panic and try to explain to you why it's not a lie or explain something better. Like that's exactly what Kane did for self-preservation purposes. He is still struggling with his people pleasing stuff that he does.
But the cat is out of the bag, and all hope is lost.
Until the next time.
So that is the end of episode 7, the beach episode. Any further comments?
I think it's interesting, and we didn't quite go over it too much in the beach episode. They the side quest where they've got the really annoying fish down in the water, and they're like, "You're going to take my treasure," but one of us, da 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 da, and the one brother goes, one of us is telling the truth, and one of us only tells lies. Which one? And the one brother goes, "I am the only one who tells lies." And it's like, dude, you ruined it. And I'm like, that's kind of foreshadowing into this. Right? It's like, well, you have the truth or you have lies, and then he just automatically ruins it. I'm the one who tells lies. It's like you knew that this wasn't going to be real. Now, for them to think that, obviously, they're not a fourth wall person watching it on their YouTube channel, but I do find it interesting how they put that foreshadow in there.
Oh, there's so much foreshadowing in this show.
Oh, there's more that I want to talk about, but I feel like I want to keep it until the end so we can connect all the dots. I don't want to talk about 8 and 9, but with stuff that happened in there until we have the actual episode with it.
So that's that. Yeah, I remember when we first watched this episode, and yeah, that so much theory crafting about Jax, and I remember people actually being angry after this episode came out. It was so funny, but it's like, yeah, well, I mean, don't get too attached to your theories, because you never know what's going to happen.
But like I said, I think that that's actually kind of the fun part about the show is we have a lot of world building in the first couple of episodes. And then the next couple, like what we covered tonight, it's a lot of character building. And then the next 2 episodes, I feel, really finish out the story really well. So join us when we do those ones.
Which will hopefully be tomorrow night. So I've got to work for that all tomorrow after our morning rituals. So we will see you then.
I'm going to get some sleep, and I hope you guys do too. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everyone.